Okay, here's a really good question. How much equity should you give your first several engineers? Let's say it's your first 5 engineers. How much should you give them? Well, here's some rules that I like to follow for equity. And I'm going to talk as if your company is already funded. You can do the math and go backwards if your company isn't funded. But I always think of things post-funding because that's when you're typically going to be building out your team more and more. So here's the way I look at it. First of all, the general rule is always be generous with your equity. If you're one of those people that wants to hold on to everything for yourself, you're not going to build the culture that you need to be successful. So therefore, you've got to get that fixed first. That's the first thing. Now, having said that, let's assume you got your head screwed on right. You want to build out your team. You want to be generous to your team. What are the general rules you should have, especially for engineers after funding? So if for the most senior engineers, not for management, that's different, but for the most senior engineers that I'm going to hire, and by management I mean your VP of engineering. VP of engineering is going to be well over 1%, even if that person's not a founder. But let's just say for your senior engineers that you're going to hire, I would say anywhere from 0.5% to 0.75% ownership of the company. Now, always think ownership percentage because shares are irrelevant. It's what is this person going to own? So I would say in that 0.5% to 0.75% range. If it's a junior engineer with less experience, probably 0.25% to 0.5%. And this is for early stage-ish companies after they've received their first round of funding. Now, one other thing to cover, since we're talking about equity, remember, please, always have a vesting schedule for your equity, both for yourself, your co-founders, and all of your employees. The typical one, you don't need to reinvent the wheel here, is a 1-year cliff, which means for the first year, you don't vest anything. But after 1 year, typically it'll be a 4-year vesting schedule, so it'll be 1/4 of the equity will vest after 1 year, and then the remaining, typically monthly, sometimes quarterly, the remainder will vest. That's a basic way to look at things, but just remember, be fair and use those general rules up to about 0.75% for senior engineers, up to maybe from 0.25% to 0.5% for your junior engineers for early stage companies, and you'll be just fine. I'm Brett at brettjfox.com. Have a great day.